This is the VIP Podcast, Virginia in Politics. Let's listen to host Chris Saxman explore the personalities and policies that connect the Commonwealth. The VIP Podcast is brought to you by the VCTA, Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free. The views and opinions expressed here do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the VCTA and Virginia Free or our sponsors.
Good morning again. This is Chris Saxman on the VIP Podcast, brought to you by VCTA, the Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free, of which I am the Executive Director. Joining us now, State Senator Monty Mason, hailing from Williamsburg. Correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you grow up in Williamsburg?
I grew up in Farmville. I went to William and Mary and
Okay.
was floated around in business a little bit, but came back home.
Grew up in Farmville. Family still there?
Yes, sir. Parents still live on First Avenue.
Come on.
Watch the Senate every day, which just shows that they need a hobby.
At least a good one. Let's went to William and Mary undergrad. Did you go to graduate school?
I did not. My wife got her law degree MBA there and is now their chief compliance officer.
Really?
She's a smart one in the family. I'm undergraduate at William
That's why
and
you're in the
Mary.
legislature.
That's right.
The VIP Podcast, Virginia in Politics.
There you go.
So you're not only a VIP, you're on the VIP show. So congratulations to you for that title. Favorite book? Let's get to Who is Monty Mason. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, I read so many journals and so many things.
Right.
I like historical books. The most recent one that I enjoyed was Doris Kearns Goodwin, who was writing about leadership and taking different snapshots of leaders among time and saying, and pulling out the parts of leadership that she admired about each leader.
What's your favorite leader in the book? What stands out to you from that book from a leader?
What stands out to me is adapting to where you are.
Okay.
And being able to understand the circumstance, the people you're working with, and the times of the day.
Yeah.
Because you might have a great skill set, but if it doesn't apply to what you're looking at today, it's not very useful.
Right.
Today, the Senate is going to honor Paul Tribble. And Paul Tribble has an incredible background, an incredible history of leadership in this Commonwealth. But what he did is go into an institution and become a transformational leader. There were probably other times that he was a different type of leader.
Sure.
But when he went down to Christopher Newport, he realized what he needed to do, and the results of it are just incredible.
It was an extraordinary accomplishment at Christopher Newport University. I heard him speak one time, and he had gone to Hampden-Sydney undergrad in Washington Lee for law school. And I said, well, he's just creating a public version of those two private schools.
Well, that's a great way to look at it.
That was because I went to Washington Lee and I was like, well, that just sounds like he understood the value of the small liberal arts college and just applied it in a public setting, which I thought was fantastic.
And has turned leadership, back to the book, into a basic tenet of every student that goes through there has a leadership class.
Really?
And they deal with the different types of leadership, the different focuses, and just the importance of being a leader in your community, whatever that means and wherever that may be.
Is Christopher Newport in your district?
It is, right in the heart of my district.
Well, that's got to be a source of pride for you.
It's great. Having gone to William and Mary undergrad and live in Williamsburg and then have Christopher Newport right in the heart of my district. And Hampton University right on the edge.
Sure.
So I've got some.
Is William and Mary in your district too?
It is. Wow. I live right across the lake.
Higher education has got to be a big part of your...
Our 329th birthday at Charter Day on Friday.
What was the Hark the Gale, whatever it's called?
Hark upon the Gale.
Hark upon the Gale. Who doesn't remember that one? I'll have to check. I have two copies of that leadership book by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I just haven't cracked either of them. Obviously, just there's some, okay. I'll read what's on the stack.
I tend to like to read books like that have small segments because I'm famous for getting 280 pages through a 400-page book. Right. But these, so I've got bookmarks in 8 books. Right. But these you can read 125 pages and kind of start over. So I enjoy those.
Well, you sound like you have the same reading habit that I do. What's your favorite TV show? What do you like?
I hardly ever watch television. I'm sports. I watch sports as much as I can. We're huge sports fans in my household.
What teams do you follow?
Well, I've always been a Washington fan, whatever they're calling themselves this week.
Commanders.
The Commanders, that's exactly right.
Sticks.
My wife, unfortunately, worked for the Dallas Cowboys after college, so that's a source of major...
Was that an indentured servitude kind of a thing?
She went to SMU undergrad and went over there and did an internship, and she's an enormous sports fan. So.
A Cowboys fan still? No,
not really. She's from Ohio, so she's been a long-suffering Cleveland fan and trying to come out of that, although Cincinnati's making the turn in front of them right now.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, we're big sports fans, but have never.
What else? What other than football do you follow?
I grew up loving baseball mostly, but I just don't have time for that. So it's mostly college football, college basketball for the most part.
The college level, who do you?
Well, I'm a William Mary guy. I'm a William Mary guy, and I just enjoy good. It's funny. I think I've progressed to more football interest as I've gotten older.
Okay.
But this is the time of year, if we have time, to start getting interested in basketball. So.
Yeah, that was always a great distraction.
The transition, right?
Because by the time you get to conference week, you're pretty close to the tournaments, and we would watch the tournaments sometimes on the board, on the voting board.
That's right.
Switch it over and just
when I was growing up, we always had the CAA or whatever it was at that point conference here in Richmond. And I always thought, boy, if I could get elected, I could work and walk down the street and watch the games as well. Then they moved it to somewhere else. So.
Right. Favorite movies? What do you like there?
Now there is another thing. Man, I'm a boring guy for some of your basic questions. I do not sit in movie theaters.
At all.
My wife and I have been to one movie in our 23-year relationship.
Come on.
And it was Cinderella with my girls.
Come on.
Not kidding.
Do you watch movies at home?
We watch them at home. Yeah.
What do you like to watch at home?
I love A Few Good Men. I love American President. These are some of the ones I've watched 3,408 times. I tend to watch.
Is that one of the movies that when it's on, you just stop and watch?
I could quote every line. And the Outlaw Josie Wales is the one that she leaves the room for, but I watch that every time as well. So
just stop.
I'm like the old classic, find the favorites and watch them 150 times.
So it's a very good way to live your life, because I do it the same way.
Simple.
It's a hell of a lot simpler.
Simple.
So you're on Agriculture and Natural Resources. That's one committee. Commerce and Labor, General Laws and Tech, Privileges and Elections, Rehab, Social Services. That's a heck of a workload.
It's a lot. It's a lot. When we took control a couple years ago, I think I went, and this is roughly somewhere around 650, 700 votes to 900 votes in the session. And so it's a lot, but it's good. You see a lot of the things come through committee. So you do the workload there. Right. And, now's the time where things come to the floor that I haven't seen on committee. So you have to I try to meet with as many people as I can, 15-minute increments here, but I have to set a little time in the morning to make sure I'm boned up on what's coming to the floor today that I haven't seen in committee. But it's led me to do a lot of things. They say come to Richmond and do something you're an expert in. And immediately Bryce Reeves, my friend, who was at the time the chairman of the Rehab and Social Services, said, hey, whole rewrite of the family child welfare code, we need somebody to get on it. And so I was kind of assigned that. And so from that, I do a lot of foster care work, a lot of child welfare work. I have gravitated to mental health incredibly since.
Has this become an area of expertise for you, or were you an expert coming in?
No, that's what I was saying is I didn't know a thing about coming in, nothing. And
Zero.
And so that was tough for the professionals that had to bring me along. Right. But I think it was also useful because I have no preconceived notion.
Right.
I come from no part of the system. I have no involvement in it, thank God. So I just looked at things fresh. And so I'm now on the executive council for CSA. So do a lot of this type of work. And I tell you, the thing I never talked about once when I first got elected was mental health. Right. And now I just feel like I should spend 50 hours a week working on our CSB, our community services boards, our state-run mental facilities. I've got a lot of bills right now trying to work through people that end up in our court system in a criminal capacity when they just need mental health help. Right. And we're not providing it at the level. So we're looking at a civil structure to take it out of the criminal structure. I've got a bill right now that gives us a little ability with the agreement of the Commonwealth and defense, and the judge and the CSB can do mandatory outpatient treatment, null process the charges, so they can bring them or dismiss
null process.
Meaning you put them aside, and if you follow and we get you the help you need, we'll dismiss them.
Okay, just for our audience.
But if you don't, that's right. And I'm not a lawyer, I shouldn't. But
that's just not been burdened with that pain either.
So, but it's just a design towards you're not a criminal. Right. You're here for petty larceny. You're here for trespassing. You're here for
solve the problem.
And let's get them the help they need.
So several of my guests this morning have been working in the same realm: mental health, education, literacy, or involved in drugs, addiction recovery, and the like. Has there been a turn in a lot of our public policy to deal with these underlying social issues, even though things are very partisan? and corrosively so in our society. It seems, though, when you pull back the veneer of all of that crap, people are working on real important issues that affect all those things, which eventually become partisan. And they manifest themselves, not that, it just does.
I work my way backwards. I think people, because of the tenor in Washington, I think people immediately consider everything to be hyper-partisan.
Right.
Then you come down here, and the things that you read about at home, 80% of them are our partisan issues. So back home, people think, oh, y'all are at each other's throats, you don't like each other. And then it couldn't be farther from the truth.
So nothing's changed in the 20 years since I first came down. People, all you guys talk about is abortion. Like, we never talk about abortion.
We had...
The press prints it, but we don't talk about it.
Right. It's one of the 120 votes we took yesterday.
Right.
So yesterday you heard was the enormous mask and back to school discussion. I think it was much more important to focus on in-person learning. I think the mask became kind of the culture war side of the issue, unfortunately. And I believe that our local school board should be able to look at the data on the ground and make flexible decisions. I think we're heading towards a spot where we're going to be in a good place. What next September looks like, I don't know. And unfortunately, what we did yesterday tied the hands of the school boards. But Siobhan Donovan was that bill. What people never see, and I voted the other way, is that...
You voted against Siobhan's bill?
Yes, sir.
So you voted... the day before, it was a 29-9 vote.
I voted no.
You voted no?
I consistently have voted with the school boards, including last year, 1303.
Okay.
But where I was going is she and I sat next to each other for the next 4 hours in general laws and had a great time.
Which people don't get.
And the staff in front of us loves it because we're bantering back and forth and so that's the part that people don't see. People see the debate, but don't see the warm and really good relationship.
The debate around that, though, and a lot of debate this year, when as a somewhat objective observer of the process and the legislature having been in there, is that it doesn't seem to have the intense partisan vitriol of previous sessions. It seems to be more mechanical. Is that fair?
I think so. There's some of that everywhere.
It's a little bit, but not like...
But no.
When it's 52-48 in the House and 21-19 in the Senate, you'd think they'd be going at it, right? Especially when one party just lost power or gained party in the House, however you view it. You'd think there'd be a little bit more the fisticuffs going up and bombs being thrown and floor speeches. There's always some of that.
Sure.
But for the most part, it really hasn't happened this year.
Because you're so close and you need to form coalitions and work together even more.
Okay.
My good friend Ben Chafin, who unfortunately we lost last year, and I used to have a conversation that regardless of which way it went, he and I were pretty good people set for 21-19.
Right.
Because we worked with everyone. We work with people, we don't throw a lot of bombs.
Right.
And you've got to work with people on both sides of the aisle. So the closer it gets, in order to form and shape policy, you've got to work together more. You're right. It seems utterly divided, but it's really closer to getting what you're trying to accomplish done.
Is that a good thing?
It's a good, very good thing.
Should, in that respect, the Senate, I don't believe, has proportional seating on its Senate committees.
Most of them, they do.
But shouldn't they for all?
To
get that comedy, to get that consensus.
That predates me.
Still, it's a Senate rule.
I do think that, so the big ones that don't are finance and commerce and labor and education and health. So
those are three really big
committees. The big dogs, right? And then everything else 8-7. So it's very close. Yeah, that's right.
But shouldn't they all be 8-7?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I mean, in a perfect world, yes. And I think what you get is, I hate...
I know both sides have done it. I'm not
exactly.
I'm not casting aspersions on either party.
That's where I was going. I hate that they did it to us. No,
so it's going to happen again.
That's not my style. But
it's not your style.
No, because again, I think you get good... Those end up making a lot of 12-3 votes.
Right.
If it were closer, I'm not sure it would work like that.
Right.
Although we have our fair share of 8-7 votes.
Yeah, but in the Senate though, it's far more collegial.
Yes. 40 people, you're going to work with and bump up against everyone, and that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And frankly, is in the Senate. Right?
It is.
What bills is Monty Mason working on this year? You want to go home and go, I did this.
Well, I almost never do that, because because I don't feel like we come up here and save the world one piece of legislation at the time.
Right.
I think what I go home this time and talk about is budget.
Okay.
What did we do for the state? How did we spend the money that we have?
Right.
What decisions did we make as far as breaks back to the people? And what did we do for the Virginia Peninsula and Southeastern Virginia that are good things with the money that we have afforded to us? There are some things that stand out to what I'm doing. I have a health plan bill that I'm carrying on behalf of the state chamber.
Let's talk about that one.
That's a good one.
Because as you pointed out in the pre-show here, you're one of the few members of the legislature in Virginia history that has had a bill vetoed by a governor of his own party.
Maybe an inauspicious designation.
No, I think it's fantastic. I wish I'd had that, but my governors were always of the opposite party anyway.
So yes, I did have that pass through the legislature, and it got tripped up in whether it did damage to the Affordable Care Act.
Let's explain the bill for our audience.
So the bill is the Chamber of Commerce would be able to set up a broad umbrella.
But it's not just for the Chamber of Commerce.
No, sir. It could be
an association health plan.
It is associate. Well, it's actually what you do is you set up a trust.
Oh.
So it's a trust, and you set up a board of trustees, and so it can be participating organizations, and so they're very defined in the bill. This just happens to be the chamber. And what the concept is, let's say they have 25,000 members.
Right.
They can have 25,000 members, and you draw upon, so the first adjustment to the insurance is off the bigger number.
Right.
Then you and I run a company with 5 to 10 people. We have a smaller component that governs and covers our employees, and so every year, you look at the actuarial tables and the result of the 25,000.
Right.
Then you move down to our 5 or 10.
For your subgroup.
So it could make your costs go down, or if you had a tough year, up a bit, but it insulates you from those dramatic and wild shifts that small businesses can't afford, and that's why they don't set up a health plan.
And the Senate bill, what's the number?
Oh man, that's a great. I have
numbers
mean
number
nothing to me. Numbers mean nothing to me.
I love it.
People come to my house sometime here on 198. I say, hey, what's that?
What's that? No idea.
And then you see their face. They're like,
you don't even know.
Well, it's your bill, sir. I'm sure it is. Which one?
We'll get it out for the audience.
Sorry.
I used to love that.
Cheat sheets.
I love when people would call the office. I'm opposed to House Bill 30. I'm like,
great, what's that?
That's the budget. You don't touch the budget bill. We don't do that. Oh, you can't be opposed to that.
Yeah. The neat thing about this, though, is because it is a trust and governed by a board of trustees, everyone gets the access to the same coverage.
Okay.
Right? Everyone. And it is designed for companies with or groups with 2 to 50 employees. So.
Okay, so what's any opposition to the bill?
Not in the Senate to this point. We've had a couple people vote, but it unanimously passed out of the Senate.
Oh, it did.
2 years ago, it passed out of the Senate like 37-3.
Okay.
And then.
But any groups opposed to it?
No, well, there have been groups? In the past. This year, not much testimony against.
Not much. Any?
No, not on my side.
Typically,
the AARP was concerned you treated seniors differently. In the past,
they're all covered by Medicare anyway.
Well, but you don't. Remember, I said the board of trustees. You decide what.
But a Medicare is.
But they're in other insurance plans.
They already have Medicare. They're covered.
That's right. But in other insurance plans, there's like a 5X or 6X component that you can or can't do. Okay. This you treat everyone the same.
Right.
The board of trustees decides what's going to be covered, and if you're our age or 70, you get the coverage. So.
Better prospects in the House?
Good. I think a similar bill passed the House about 60-40. So
people opposed to association health plans.
I think they may be getting caught up still in the
seriously
the act.
The whole. how do you vote against something that is, I'm not going to. I'll have some of them in later perhaps, but the whole thing with healthcare for the longest time was affordable, accessible, quality healthcare.
Expanding access to affordable healthcare. That's what it's about for me.
Yeah, so, I don't know how you vote against that one, but
to me that doesn't have a letter next to it. That just has a human element.
Nor should it.
I have one that you would think may, but it's an electronic vehicles bill. Last year we committed to the future of electronic vehicles. This year I have a bill that says if your motor pools and your state general services are going to replace their fleet, that they use what is a free calculator and determine for comparable vehicles what you're going to replace. So you can't say, I need a minivan and compare it to a Prius. No, you need a sedan. So you compare it and you take into consideration all costs of the electronic vehicle. So the charging stations, the cost of the whole thing, and you analyze it over the 5, 6, 7, whatever the life of the car will be, and you buy the cheapest and most inexpensive one. And so we think it's a way for the state to put the money where their mouth is and start moving down the electrical vehicles path.
Okay, so it incentivizes the state to buy?
It doesn't. No, there's no incentive. It is by the lowest cost option. So it is really a good government and cost-efficient bill if the electronic car over that 5 or 7 year period is the is most cost-efficient. If it's not, by the standard.
That's how the state's supposed to make this is within state government then?
That is within state government.
Okay.
Now,
I'm just trying to follow.
If you are, Frank Ruff brought up a point. Suppose you're driving from Mecklenburg to Abington every week, and you're worried about the charges along the way. You ask for a variance. Right. You ask for an exclusion, and you would get it. Emergency vehicles aren't included to this point.
Okay.
So it's just a way towards continuing down electrical vehicle path, and really towards trying to lower the cost of government.
What are we going to do as we add more electric vehicles to the fleet? Mm-hmm. The total Virginia fleet, not the Commonwealth's fleet, not the state's fleet.
Right.
What are we going to do to create a funding source for transportation needs when you get rid of the gas?
Oh, great question. Well, short term, there's about $114 million in the infrastructure plan for charging stations and for making that able. But you're exactly right.
Are we going to a mileage tax?
I don't know, but we're going to have to look. The gas tax is already going to be a point of diminishing returns,
right? And
you've seen some bills regarding trying to put a freeze on that. I'm hopeful that we will not do that.
You don't support the temporary freeze?
The cost of the pump doesn't change a bit. Right. I mean, when we put the tax on last time, the cost was exactly the same as it was across the border, and they have a dramatically higher tax. And I also hail from southeastern Virginia, where I'm on the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission, and we're doing some revolutionary transportation projects, including the $3.8 billion bridge tunnel project. That $3.4 billion of that we put up ourselves.
And you need the funding to pay off those bonds.
Yeah, well, we financed against it, and we're completing the outer network, doing the high-rise bridge. It's a great example of regional cooperation. Right. The high-rise bridge was first was on the project. And we had 3 phases of Interstate 64 widening up to Upper 199 in James City County. The high-rise bridge wasn't ready to go. So
Where is the high-rise bridge?
Chesapeake.
Chesapeake.
Down the lower, like where it's a great place where 64 east heads due west. And vice versa. Down there.
There.
When it turns, it's like 5 miles.
That always screws me up. I'm like, what? It's like going through Lynchburg. Why am I going south on this, or and it says north?
You got it. And don't look at the compass on your car.
No.
But so we put the 3
goes in a
phases.
Circle yes, sir. It goes in a circle.
We put the 3 phases on the peninsula together and made it a project.
Right.
Delayed the high-rise bridge a year.
Okay.
It was ready. We went the next year. Now the high-rise bridge is coming out of the river, and we've completed the 3 phases of 64. Still have 27 miles through New Kent to get to Bottoms Bridge, and we're working on ideas and proposals for that now.
All right. So where are we on casino gaming? What's the latest on that?
Well, casinos, as you know, we gave the number of licenses. We should be getting close to one of the ones, I believe, out in southwestern Virginia coming out of the ground.
Bristol.
Yes, sir. Portsmouth and Norfolk are moving along. We've had the discussion about Richmond and Petersburg. We consider that
where is that now?
Well, we considered that to be one license. And Richmond voted no. So now there's a bill moving through to give Petersburg the opportunity to do that referendum.
Okay.
And we are, and then there are a lot of competing other gaming things that of interest. And, we've kind of pressed pause on that. We've done a lot in the gaming world in the last 5 years.
It's been extraordinary.
It's
20 years ago, we're not talking gaming and
when
casinos.
you were here, these things were not even a conversation, right?
No, it's like, who's bringing this bill and why they do it? They wouldn't do that. But let's talk about another area of sports, the Stadium Authority bill.
Yes.
Have you been briefed on that?
I have not. I don't know. I know what I've read. I haven't seen a whole lot about that. That hasn't come through my committee of jurisdiction. So I don't
wait for it to get to the floor and then you'll make a decision?
Well, I just need to study it and look at it a little closer.
Do you have a gut feel like this is something I would support, not support?
I think you have,
Dan Snyder has gotten in a bit of trouble recently, and he's been in the news on the negative side with some sexual harassment allegations within the organization, and now they come in for, frankly, a sweetheart deal from the Commonwealth to build a stadium and the surrounding business components to it. Is that being talked about at all?
I have been in almost no conversations.
Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And the personal and the way that organization's run is a topic for many days, right? But as far as the Stadium Authority and the stadium,
so you separate the two out.
I mean, I do. I think that needs to be thoroughly investigated and discussed and determined. Is that organization being run properly?
Right.
Right. Basic. But when we're talking about a stadium, I would say go up and look at the one they have. Well, but it's also not terribly old.
It's okay. I got briefed on the bill, and I'm like, that place.
It's not terribly.
No one wants to go there.
So what is it? 30 years old?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, so how much money do you want to pile into something that at 30 years appears to be obsolete?
Well, and on as I was briefed, that stadium authority is going to be the one that has the stadium as a property. So they're giving that asset to the stadium authority. So in 30 years, do we have to do this all over again?
Right.
I mean, to my way of thinking, no, Mr. Snyder, that's your building.
Yeah.
You take that one from here and don't turn that over to the Commonwealth in 30 years as a relic, as a deteriorating asset.
Thinking back to a lot of the work we've done on our roads and our transportation system, we think a lot longer term. And so when you think of making an enormous investment for something that has a 30-year shelf life, you got to think long and hard.
Right. So you haven't nothing going.
No,
what is the one issue that's going to hold up the budget this year? Is it the gas tax and the grocery tax? Is that the conundrum this year?
So there's an enormous wish list out there
with all the money.
Oh, I mean, and so the veterans tax break, a laudable and notable goal. We always talk about attracting and retaining our veterans if they leave the military. It's great. The grocery tax, a great campaign discussion. But how much bang for the buck is there really there? Doubling the standard deductions, about $1.2 to $4 billion. That's a huge number. So I think the thing that holds it up is my expectation is the House will carry essentially the governor's ask.
Sure.
And the Senate, who has had, I've always told people that across the board, you'd be very proud of how Virginia puts a budget together. It's conservatively done because we don't
disagree.
We don't make our own money. So we have to.
We can't.
You're right. So we have to determine what we think the pot of money is going to be.
But we've also had. But the ethos of Virginia has been: we're going to run the place responsibly. We're not going to go too heavily into debt and upset the apple cart on the AAA bond rating. That is a pillar of government in Virginia. Has to happen.
That's A.
Yeah. So
and
that forces the hand.
The Senate Finance Committee has been the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, we switch control, but we have a Republican that chairs a subcommittee. They really don't play that game in Senate Finance.
No.
And so I've got a couple bills there this afternoon I'm going to try to get priority on.
Right.
But so they are a team that have worked together for a long time.
Right.
And so when that team begins to negotiate with what I would assume to be the governor's vehicle, that's where we have to decide. What breaks do you want to give? What tax efforts do you want to do? You want to double the standard deduction? And so that would be, I think, the biggest point of controversy is what we decide to do.
Right. At the end of the day, the decision will be made by March 12th.
Grocery tax is a great campaign conversation and amounts to $280 million, divided 3 ways.
Annually.
So, I mean.
Got it.
So it's just.
It has to add up.
Yeah, that's right. And the veterans tax break is between $250 and $400 with a conversation about money coming back into the state and jobs and people that, so. It'll be fascinating, and
it's going to be a.
But I also think there will be I believe, and I'm a glass half full guy,
right.
that there will be a broad want to make sure that we get a package to the governor's desk.
But I think it's extraordinary that we're talking about tax cuts and everyone's like, yeah, we need to cut taxes. Monty Mason, great to have you here on the VIP podcast. Congratulations. You, sir, are now a VIP.
Thanks for having me.
Available on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube is the VIP podcast brought to you by VCTA, the Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free. Thanks for joining us.